invest in people in the long term, there has to be a mutual understanding.
Hustle hard, hustle hard. Closed mouths don't get fed. Thinking strategically, but acting like a gorilla is the kind of marketing that's small. When it innovates very little, it's highly risk averse, and it takes the
say it is because the business education that you have received thus far really does focus on a lot of the topics that we're going to talk about tonight. And one of the cool things about the chapter 5 is it takes these concepts like efficiency, innovation, and technology, and what else, quality, which are subject matters that you've probably talked about in most of your classes, and it really bakes it down into the basics, into the core things that we must understand if we're going to win. And one of the nice things about it too is it kind of strips out all of the fluff, and it hones in on like specifics of like pay for performance. Well, why do we pay for performance? Well, we want to pay for performance because we want the people that work for our organization to be tied, to be incentivized to have the same goals that we have. Okay, great. That makes perfect sense. How do we do that? Well, it depends. And it kind of simplifies the whole concept of incentivizing staff members so that human beings are productive at work. And when we get into, well, let's talk about how our culture is, and we talk about our HR policies and how we have cross-functional teams and maybe how the organization is designed, it gets a little bit too complicated. But when we strictly say, hey, we really need staff members to be efficient and effective, and we need them to be productive, and how can we pay for that? And when we pay for things like people being efficient and productive, how do we measure that? And if we do a good job at it, will it create value for our shareholders? And most of the time it's yes, but it's specific to ensuring that people are productive. Do I think that people are just units of production? No, of course not. But from a strategic perspective, I do believe that people should be put in positions to be successful, not just for themselves, but also for the organization that's paying them and compensating them and giving them benefits. And so that's kind of why it's fun to talk through the functional level strategies of an organization. Do you guys know this company called Salesforce by any chance? I don't use it at the college, but a competitor of theirs, which is the organization that we used in our company, was HubSpot. And HubSpot got into this kind of customer relationship management tools. But Salesforce has really evolved in a lot of ways, and it's become more of a operating system for companies that's customized to the company's needs, and really building software to ensure that organizations can digitize, can be the digitalization process within organizations. You can track productivity, you can task people, you can track sales leads. And obviously, if let's say I'm selling real estate and I have 6 listings, and every single time I meet a potential buyer at one of my listings, it doesn't matter if they're going to buy the house or not. I can get their information. When I get their information, I can communicate with them consecutively about what's happening at all my real estate properties. But I know where I got their information from, and I can track them over time. I can see what they clicked. I can see what they didn't click. So I know more about my customer when I get their information, and I'm capable of bringing them through this thing called the sales process, from prospective buyer to closed property to now they possibly might be a prospective customer of mine where I can list their house in the future. And it does much more than that, but you can get the idea how it brings these contacts essentially through this process. And certainly, I won't underestimate the part that what Salesforce does. And maybe I'll show a quick video. This is they. So let's just say that you run a company that is selling products, and you sell calculators. And when you sell calculators, there's a lot that goes into it. You have different departments, and these different departments have different duties and responsibilities. So let's just say that there's one department that manages the floor operations. They're just overseeing what's happening on the floor. There's another department that oversees digital infrastructure to make sure that all the technology is working. And then there's another department that handles design and development. So 3 departments: operations on the floor, digital infrastructure, and design and development. All of these 3 different departments have different priorities. All these 3 different departments have different goals, but they need to be able to work together. So if you can understand how the operations of people on the floor, along with the people who are managing all the technology, and along with the people who are sort of designing the new calculators, probably need to understand what everybody's doing. And what Salesforce does is it allows these different departments sort of to open up their chest, if you would, if you're looking at like an X-ray, and say, hey, here's what I'm doing, and here's what we're up to. And how can this information help the design department be better at designing by looking to see what the aspects of operations and the digital infrastructure are doing. And so it's sort of like an intranet. And Salesforce does a really good job at that. I'm not sure if I explained that well enough, but that is going to be the key to the conversation tonight, is how do these things that we do within an organization at the functional level work together to create competitive advantages. And again, I want to make it relevant for you because I think that your business education has really teed you up for this conversation. So you'll probably be able to hopefully contribute to this discussion tonight. First discussion questions bring up the four sort of pillars of the functional level strategy, what we're trying to build up in order to achieve competitive advantage. Can anybody name one of those four pillars to build valuable resources? And the functional level strategies, when the resources are allocated appropriately, the goal of allocating those resources to build up these things called efficiency, quality, innovation, and customer responsiveness allow organizations to be more competitive. And so that's really, these four pillars are what we're going to be talking about. So I want you to see this video through the lens of these four words. How can an organization purchase a system like Salesforce? And then by purchasing and implementing Salesforce, which is not cheap, by the way, how can that organization become more efficient? And then how can that organization track quality and build quality of excellence and reliability into their products and services? And then in addition to that, how can we use some of this information to innovate, to have incremental innovation, or even in addition to incremental innovation, have disruptive innovation? What are some trends that we're noticing by using all of these tools that we could say, wait a minute, if we did something like this, we would be 20% bigger, better, more agile, more flexible. We can disrupt an industry, whatever. And then lastly, how do we tie all of this together to create what would be considered a customer experience that will wow our customers? And I just want to tell one story. I want to read one story to kind of get you inspired about the type of discussion that we're going to have tonight. I actually probably don't know exactly where it is, nor do I feel like finding it. But here's the story. There was a guy, I'm going to make up his name. His name is Dwight. And Dwight worked for an organization called the Four Seasons Hotel. And Dwight was a guy that loaded bags into guests' truck, like their truck, their car. So they would have luggage. And Dwight's job was to put the luggage into the back of either the taxi cab, the Uber, or the person's car. Like that's what he needed to do. So he was constantly bringing luggage, putting it into the car. So he forgot one day to put this man's suitcase, briefcase, into the back of the car. And the man drove off and got on a flight and left his briefcase at the hotel because Dwight did not do what he was supposed to do by putting the briefcase in the back of the car. So what did Dwight do? Dwight contacted the customer, contacted the person because they had the briefcase, and called the person and said, hey, listen, here's the deal. You left your briefcase here at the hotel. It's my fault. What do you want me to do? Well, this guy, Dwight, said, well, I need that briefcase tonight in New York City. And this was like in Atlanta. And it's very important that I have that briefcase. Like, how can you help me, Dwight? Dwight said, don't worry about it. Dwight, on his own fruition, on his own dime, went to the airport, caught a flight to New York City, flew to New York City, and dropped the briefcase off with the customer and said, I'm so sorry, sir. Here's your briefcase. It was totally my fault. And he didn't get approval for this. He just did it on his own. And so when the management found out about what Dwight did, they decided that they were going to not tell Dwight how to follow proper protocols or tell Dwight's story or whatever. They made him Employee of the Year. And they said, this is exactly what we do here at the Four Seasons Hotel by being attentive and being focused on our customers. And these kinds of things, when employees and staff members behave like that, if they're aligned in this kind of way, magical things happen. So that's just kind of thinking through just simple, let's say it's not simple. Employees continuing to operate like that repetitively, doing it all the time, and then taking that and putting an exponent on it, putting an exponent of 20 on that Dwight employee. And now you got hundreds or thousands of employees with that same kind of mindset. What kind of advantage do you think that's going to offer an organization? Well, I'll tell you, it's 1/4 of the key advantages that we're going to talk about here at the functional level strategy. 1/4. Forget about efficiency. All this terminology, how can we be the most efficient with our resources and have the least amount of inputs to get the most amount of output? Forget about that for a second. If we just did the customer responsiveness, we're covering 1/4 of the need here. Of course, being efficient is important, but maybe it can be a 30%, but if customer responsiveness is 100%, it's great. And it works both ways. If efficiency is 100% and customer responsiveness is 30%, it still, balances each other out. So again, you can see the power of just being really, really, really good at just one of these could certainly take a company to the next level. So let's take a look at the Salesforce video, and hopefully you can see how, again, I'm going to restate them, efficiency, quality, innovation, and customer responsiveness can be brought about by using a software like this. Obviously, the more efficient we are as well in our service or by producing our products, likely, I would assume, the better quality our operations become. And that makes our product more reliable. And so obviously, too, when you think about innovation, you think about ways in which you can design processes within a company that will take less time. So if I was to, again, clean my yard and I was to mow my yard, and then all of a sudden I decided that I was going to purchase a robot that mowed my yard for me because of some new innovative product out there, how much time does it take me to mow my yard? Well, no time, zero. I went from taking 3 hours to zero. That's 3 additional hours that I can use doing something else. So that's how innovation relates to efficiency. So there's a lot of ways that these four pillars relate to one another. So I really want to kind of, I'm purposefully unwilling to continue until we fully understand these four things, because there's no sense in talking about functional strategy until we fully understand these things and how they relate to one another. So the answer here in the book says, because it reduces waste and time spent fixing defects and the cost of after sales service and support, quality has an important positive impact on efficiency. Moreover, when superior quality is valued by customers, it increases the customer's responsiveness. Sorry, it increases the company's customer responsiveness. Besides, innovation in both products and processes can enhance efficiency, quality, and customer responsiveness. So innovation helps efficiency, quality, and customer responsiveness, all three. For example, process innovations, such as Toyota's lean production system, can simultaneously increase efficiency and quality. Similarly, the ability to rapidly develop innovative new products increases a company's ability to service customers. Finally, it is important to keep in mind that achieving superior efficiency, quality, and innovation are all part of achieving superior customer responsiveness. Okay, second one. What role can top management play in helping a company achieve superior efficiency, quality, innovation? So let's break these apart. Obviously, we know by now we really want efficiency, we want quality, we want innovation, we want responsiveness to customers. So, what role can top management, you are the CEO of the company, what role can you play to ensure that the organization makes quality products and delivers quality services? What's the role that you can play? Lead by example. And when I'm assuming when Prudence says set the tone, it means so do some of it yourself. Let them see that you're choosing to do things that help the quality of the product, that you're investing in activities that make sure quality is there, that you're observing ways in which your organization is or isn't achieving its quality standards. And certainly you have measurements and you put the measurements on a board somewhere. Like you're basically talking about it all the time. You're the chief repeating officer about quality. So that's good, Prudence. Any other ways? Okay, so let's move from quality. And now, how does an executive, you as the CEO, how do you help the organization achieve efficiency? All of the above. The first person who spoke talked about fostering creativity, which could be inefficient, by the way, but it could drive innovation, which then driving innovation then helps the efficiency. So it kind of works both ways. But yeah, you guys touched on it. You touched on all four of them by those comments. So great job. All right. So this is what the book says. The book says the role of top management is absolutely critical in achieving. This is why you study what you study. We're learning leadership and management innovation. And again, why I love this particular chapter, because this is what we're doing. How do we lead to innovate? How do we manage to innovate? Absolutely critical in achieving each of these goals. It is top management's task to set challenging efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness goals, and to communicate the importance of these goals to others in the organization. So if all you did was engage in the strategic planning process, come up with a clear set of goals with your team, and then drive those goals through the organization, track those goals effectively, and reward people based on those goals, there's the golden ticket for Charlie and the Chocolate Factory management success. It sounds straightforward. And if all you did was that, you're going to win. But then you have to think, okay, am I setting the right goals? And am I acting in the right kind of way? And also, are some of the things that I'm doing actually working? Are we achieving it? Are we measuring the right things? All this kind of stuff. So top management must also demonstrate commitment to the attainment of these goals by modeling the desired behavior, what Prudence said, and by using the internal incentive systems of the organization to reinforce behavior that is consistent with each of the goals. So reinforcement would be, thank you so much, Yasel, for achieving that goal. Here's 500 bucks. Or Raphael, I appreciate you very much when you come in early. Pat on the back. You're doing a good job. Positive reinforcement. You're reinforcing the good behaviors, and you either extinct, mean you don't say anything about the bad behaviors and hope that they go away, or you punish the behaviors that are not wanted, and you reward positive reinforcement, the behaviors that are wanted. So that's a coaching aspect of management. Furthermore, top management has to allocate resources within the organization. This is key. And somebody said, I think Sue said it, allocation of resources within the organization so that others can attain these goals. It needs to, okay, so that's a big one. Let's think about that. The question says, what role can top management play in helping a company achieve superior efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers? So, lady, congratulations. You are officially the head of people, not the head of people, the head of customer service, or the head of patient experience at Baptist Health South Florida. Congratulations. You have exactly $100 and you have no ability to hire anybody. That's your budget for the year. So I basically handcuffed you at the very beginning. I said, this is really important and you're in charge of it, but you get no resources to achieve your goals. Is that fair? Forget about the 100. What would you want me to say if I said you're in charge of customer service here at this company? What would you want me to say after that? Me up in this wonderful position. How much money do I get to control? How many resources do I have in order to achieve my goals? You would want to hear, hey, the budget that's allocated towards the success of your goals is exactly what you asked for. You're going to get the full request. You can hire X amount of people, which is what you put in the budget, what you told me you needed. You got it. You also have a brand new facility that you're going to move into. You got all the desks, computers, and chairs, and phone systems, and Salesforce technology. You got everything you need. So not only am I giving you a title and a role, but I'm also allocating resources to help you achieve your goal. That's huge. It is hypocritical to the ninth degree to set somebody up in a position and say that your position is very important, we need your help, but then not to follow that up with resources. Put your money where your mouth is. Simple as that. We're all hopefully managers and top managers and striving to become managers and top managers. Even if we aren't, even if we're independent contributors, it is still very important to understand this. If you work in an organization with a group of people and you have a department that's incentivized to do this, you have another department that's incentivized to do this, and these departments are at odds with each other, they do not want to cooperate with each other, because in order to cooperate, they have to do additional tasks that they don't really want to do. And it's not my job. And I don't want to talk to Sue. Why do I have to call Sue? That's a problem. And as a top manager, you need to bridge that gap. We need to bridge that gap. We need to get interdependencies amongst those departments and facilitate collaboration. If we can't effectively facilitate collaboration, it means we're not using our resources to the best of their capability. And that's why Salesforce had that whole cloud system where it showed that the different departments are operating together, that there's ways in which we can view what's happening in these other departments. It's a powerful concept. And it's our job and our duty to do that. Quality is tied to efficiency as well. I mean, in a sense, it's like, how is quality tied to efficiency? So if you walk into somebody's house and they're going to cook you a meal, and you walk in and you see the floor is dirty and the kitchen's dirty and it smells like nobody has sprayed air freshener for a year, and there's dirty diapers on the floor, and do you think that meal is going to be a good meal, a quality meal? The leading question. Obviously, you're like, no, I'm a little bit skeptical about how good the meal is going to be cooked, because I can see that the way in which they take care of their home, you know, they're struggling, they're busy. I'm not trying to insult anybody who has a dirty home. I'm just trying to say that sometimes when you become more efficient in your operation of your home, and you're good at doing the little things like safety is a big one. And then you're good at making sure the guys clean their cars. And if you're safe in making sure the guys clean their cars, people don't get hurt, and they're able to get in and out of the car easier and find their tools easier. So if they don't get hurt, they get in and out of the car easier and find their tools easier. There's a good chance that the quality of work they're going to do is going to be a little bit higher. So Six Sigma is focused on quality, but in order to focus on quality, we have to improve efficiency. So it ties efficiency and quality together very much so. So Six Sigma is a powerful concept, that really is a advanced level of functional strategy development. I would say that Six Sigma probably uses all of them, but specifically focuses on quality. Okay, so over time, will the adoption of Six Sigma quality improvement processes give a company a competitive advantage? Do you think? Heard recently just about the general concept of management and management coming into organizations. And what does every manager look at when they first come into a new organization? They say, let's just say that they're these type A, Six Sigma black belt type managers. They're like, well, we have to look at the processes and let's re-engineer the processes and let's make the processes better. And we have to create, more quality from our Six Sigma processes. And it's kind of like, well, at what point is that a diminishing return in a sense? Why don't we just create a new product? Or why don't we just possibly innovate the way we do something else? Like, why do we constantly have to keep making our processes more streamlined and more efficient and more efficient and more efficient? And where does that end? And a lot of organizations, they come in and they do take a different approach, kind of like how I talked about safety, harping on safety, talking about the people and safety. And if you can create a different angle to possibly help people think through why this concept is going to help you improve, that would be great. Or let's just say the adoption of artificial intelligence. We talked about Salesforce. I'm going to show you a clip at some point in the class about what Salesforce is doing right now with AI agents. And what they're doing with AI agents isn't laying off a bunch of people. What they're doing with AI agents is empowering the staff members there to be more efficient with their work. And it's by adopting technology, using innovation, and hopefully it helps with quality as well. We definitely will talk a decent amount tonight about AI, because AI is a quintessential tool. It's a tool in the case of a manager to use for the functional strategy to become of better quality. That's obviously an innovative process of using technology, and to possibly develop customer responsiveness, and then to also be more efficient within their operations if they know how to use the tool effectively. Let's break that down, because it's certainly a functional level aspect that I think does all of them. So you show up at the store, and when you show up at the store, you're encouraged to download an app. You're like, oh, I don't want to download an app. That's annoying. And say, okay, well, if you download the app, you get points. And when you build up enough points, you get a free coffee or you get a free whatever the heck. And someone says, okay, fine, I'll do the app. So they do the app, they now create an account, they show up at the store, they scan their deal. And so when they scan their deal, they notice that there's like a gamification component of, I just got a coffee and I got some points. And in getting those points, not only does the store know where you are, you just basically identified yourself. It's like having your ID tag at the store saying, I'm here. That gets put into their digital cloud. And now they're starting to track your consumer behavior. That's clearly going to help them become more efficient when it comes to marketing to you, when it comes to messaging to you. It's clearly going to help them possibly ensure that you have a feedback system where you say, I had a great experience today. So that's going to help them with their quality. And it's likely an innovative way of doing things so that they can have these trends and see what the heck is going on. And without a doubt, like you mentioned, they're responsive to customers because now you can order from the app. They kind of know what you want. They have something stored. So you pull up the app and it says, would you like what you ordered 100 times in the past? Like, of course I want that. So it's like, it's really easy to place an order and you know exactly where it's going to go and exactly how long it's going to take. And that's incredibly responsive to customers. So I think that one particular idea that you just mentioned brushes it on all four of those pillars. I heard some it's sort of reanalyzing the way we go about things. How do we purchase our meat? From whom? How much does it cost? How can we make this more efficient? How can we transport it better? How can we keep it fresh? And these Six Sigma will break down all that process. So this is what the book says. Like any other valuable management technique, Six Sigma processes are tools that improve the competitive position of those companies that adopt it through their impact on efficiency, quality, innovation, and responsiveness to customers. Like any other tool, valuable tool, it will be and has been rapidly imitated. Six Sigma has spread throughout firms headquartered in developed countries. Although many companies still have some way to go in understanding and using Six Sigma processes, they are becoming less a source of competitive advantage, becoming less a source of competitive advantage because everybody knows about it, because they are no longer rare, and then are no longer rare, then an absolute necessity just for achieving competitive parity, meaning it's no longer a differentiator. Everybody's doing it. In addition, customers are becoming accustomed to and demanding high quality. So Six Sigma and other quality improvement processes are becoming more and more essential, especially for multinational firms. This is a funny, I don't know, maybe it's relevant. And we can move on to talking about different things. But if you have been to Six Flags or Disney World as of late, and you purchase this thing called like a fast pass or whatever it may be, you have your expectations of waiting in line are like nothing. And it's almost like you come to the park, you pay extra money, you want quality service, and you want to go to the line and you want to get on the ride right away. There's very little, and I guess I'm not generalizing this, but just try to envision what it was like 20 years ago and how hard it is to compete now with these kinds of organizations who have created such efficiency within their operation. And so again, I stick to the Disney World thing because in the past, my expectation was I was going to go to Disney World and it would take an hour and a half or 2 hours to wait in the line for Space Mountain, Splash Mountain, whatever that was. It was worth it. I was fine with that. Now, the last two times I went, I got a fast pass and I paid, $150 for it. And I show up to the line and I wait 15 minutes. And so the next ride I go to, if I have to wait 45 minutes, I'm like, I'm not even going to take this ride. My threshold for waiting has decreased significantly. And I believe that is happening as consumers are now expecting and demanding these kinds of quality of service, the ability to critique people, that whole Uber example that we have, timeliness, efficiency, and also I think the transparency where we have social media outlets where now we can very easily put negative reviews on people's businesses. The consumer power is much higher. And I think organizations are very quickly responding to that. And I just believe that in this day and age, being a customer, being a consumer is really, there's it's a lot of ease to it. So it's becoming harder and harder to compete. And so I think about that because when it comes to Six Sigma, that little spiel is right. I feel like everybody's doing it. Everybody's making sure they're as efficient as possible. And one of the things that we had to do with our organization is we'd have to learn how to say no to customers that we just knew we couldn't satisfy their expectations. If they wanted us to do tree work for them and they wanted us to do tree work next week, and we knew that we were booked next week, we would just simply say no. And if we were to say no, we would totally understand if they just choose another company because it doesn't like they want tree work next week and they should get tree work next week. We just can't provide them with that. So again, that's another reason why you build up that customer loyalty, the brand, the reputation, you deliver something above and beyond, and possibly they will wait 3 weeks because they want you to come in and do the tree work. And that capacity constraint no longer exists. Okay, let me read this quick. It's a little case study if you've seen the chapter. So what this is highlighting is efficiency. And in addition to efficiency, customization. Because in order to serve a large amount of people and also to customize your service or product to a large amount of people, it's brilliant what Pandora was able to do. So let me just read this briefly and then we'll watch a video and hopefully we'll talk a little bit more about this chapter at some point. So Pandora, mass customization internet radio. Pandora Media streams music to PCs and mobile devices. Customers start by typing in the kind of music they want to listen to, like ABBA. What music genre is that? Okay. With a database of over 100,000 artists, unbelievable. There's a good chance that Pandora has something for you. However, particular to your taste. Customers can then rate the music that Pandora plays for them, thumbs up or thumbs down. Pandora takes this feedback and refines the music it streams to a customer. The company also uses sophisticated predictive statistical analysis. That's a big one. What do other customers who also like this song listen to? And product analysis, what Pandora calls its music genome, which analyzes songs and identifies similar songs to further customize the experience for the individual listener. So huge customized experience when you listen to Pandora. The music genome has the added benefit of introducing listeners to new songs they might like based on an analysis of their listening habits. The result is a radio station attuned to each individual's unique listening preferences. This is mass communication at its most pure. So let me see if I can break it down from a business perspective. You have $100 million. I know I keep throwing these numbers out there. And you have to build something like this. You have to build a genome algorithm to allow these customers to come on, and it's very sophisticated. It's very expensive to build. And you also have to have access to 100,000 different artists. That's a huge, it's called a fixed cost infrastructure. So, but once you attain that, once you get those fixed cost infrastructures, a new user that comes on and subscribes costs you nothing. The marginal cost of serving another user is almost zero. And you can have millions of subscribers. There's no limit to how many subscribers you have, but obviously you have to pay for that initial fixed cost. So it's kind of like when we use the example of airplane industry. When you buy a bunch of airplanes, it's a lot of money to fuel the airplanes and all this kind of stuff. It's a lot of money, but to fill an additional seat costs you hardly anything. Just put another person on a plane. When you put another person on a plane, you almost reap 100% of the price that person paid, because you have to fly from here to here with this big plane anyways. It's a lot of fixed cost. But another person in a seat, it doesn't cost you any more money, or hardly any more money, to serve that next person. So there's a lot of business models like this. Pandora is one of them. And it's not an easy thing to build, but once you build it, it's highly lucrative. Launched in 2000, by late 2017, Pandora's annualized revenue run rate was 1.7 billion. There were 250 million registered users and 78 million active users, giving Pandora a 69% share of the online radio market in the United States. Pandora's revenue comes primarily from advertising. Through premium subscribers can pay $109 a year and get commercial-free music. I was a premium subscriber for like 1 or 2 years. Despite its rapid growth, a testament to the value of mass customization, Pandora does have its problems. Pandora pays more than half of its revenue in royalties to music publishers. By comparison, satellite radio company SiriusXM pays out only 7.5% of its revenue in the form of royalties, and cable companies that stream music pay only 15%. The different royalty rates are due to somewhat arcane regulations under which 3 judges who serve on the Copyright Royalty Board, an arm of the Library of Congress, set royalty fees for radio broadcasters. This method of setting royalty rates has worked against Pandora. Although the company is lobbying hard to change the law, Pandora is also facing growing competition from Spotify and Rdio, 2 customizable music streaming services that have sold equity stakes to record labels in exchange for access to their music libraries. There are also reports that Apple will soon be offering its own customizable music streaming service. Regardless of what happens to Pandora in the long run, it would seem that the mass customization of internet radio is here to stay. And Pandora created that. Fabulous concept. Or being the first mover advantage versus the second mover advantage. So I think that's what you're referring to. And yes, Spotify is dominating that space now. And Pandora did a good job, but couldn't necessarily compete with Spotify for a lot of reasons. But Pandora, I mean, they certainly, if I was the CEO and founder of Pandora, I would consider myself a success. And so that's what's so fascinating about business and about this class, is that just because you're a successful company for the first 5 years really has no mark on your longevity of success, because you still need to be innovative, you still need to be creative, you still need to be competitive, and you need to find that sustainable competitive advantage. And Pandora is certainly an example of that. I don't know how they make any money if nobody's paying for their services. Everybody's listening to free internet radio. Their advertisers are still paying them. What is it that we can do on a regular basis to continue to be responsive to our customers through innovation by creating quality products, and certainly at the same time being as efficient as possible? And I love how Susan pointed out the fact that efficiency is inefficient. It's insufficient in and of itself. Efficiency for what? This chapter kind of has the premise, the building block, or the axiom. It's 3 different words for the same thing: premise, building block, axiom, saying that we're in business. We have customer demand. We're making products. Okay, so then now what? How do we continue making products, and how do we make them better so that they continue to be effective within the marketplace? The VCR no longer exists. The cassette player no longer exists. Disruptive innovation came in. But there's certain companies that were able to successfully pivot through that by focusing on these things at the functional level strategy. We looked at this last time, and I just want to remind you of how the functional level strategy ties into the entire process of creating a differentiation strategy, of low cost strategy, and being able to execute on the business level strategy, low cost leadership or differentiation, be as simple as that for now, by using efficiency, quality, innovation, customer responsiveness as a tool to achieve those goals. And hopefully you can see how those tie in together. The one thing that I really wanted to hone in on, because I think it's a fascinating talking point, because I come from an entrepreneurship background. I come from a small business background. And when I think about things that would be considered to be bureaucracies, large organizations with a lot of people doing a lot of different things, I can, as a leader and as a manager, I can see inefficiencies happening everywhere. I can see people hanging out by the water cooler longer than they have to be. I question to myself, I scratch my mind if I'm within an institution for a long period of time and I keep seeing the same person. I'm like, what is that person doing around here? Because every time I see them, they're not really working. They're not doing anything. So you would think that the larger an organization gets, the diseconomies of scale exist. So let me try to paint it like this. Remember, we have this curve. The more we produce, the more we produce of a particular product. Like we're making calculators. If we sell 1,000 calculators, our unit costs begin to start going down. If we sell 100,000 calculators, our unit costs are extremely low. But there's a certain point, in order to make 100,000 calculators, I got to employ a bunch of people and I got to open up some new factories. So eventually, at a certain point, because we have so many factories, now we have so many people, we have too many factories and too many people, and literally we could be losing our economies of scale. And this is a better way to think about it. So diseconomies of scale occur primarily because of the increased bureaucracy associated with large scale enterprises and the managerial inefficiencies that can result. Powerful concept. Larger enterprises have a tendency to develop extensive managerial hierarchies in which dysfunctional political behavior is commonplace. I stop and I pause and I look at the camera because maybe you have experienced this. People are so busy pointing their cannons at one another. Like, let's bicker about who's got a better email signature versus let's bicker about how do we serve the customer better. Let's bicker about how do we become more innovative. Let's bicker about ways in which we can create a more quality product or service. Those are righteous bickering things. To bicker about your email signature, your business card, or your presentation skills is a useless endeavor. I mean, it may not be useless. You may be sharpening some kind of skills and tools, but you can understand how the bigger an organization gets, the more people are involved, the more people start pointing their cannons at one another as opposed to pointing them at the customer. And that's what diseconomies of scale is. I love this story they give us about Nucor and what Nucor does to combat these diseconomies of scale. Okay, ready? So managers must know the extent of economies of scale and where diseconomies of scale begin to occur. And it's a big one. My father and I ran an organization that was based in Key Largo, and we had one shop, and we had one office, and we had one shop that were very close to one another. So we had a tightly knit control over overseeing, literally physically overseeing the people, the processes, the machinery, all this kind of stuff. Everything changed within our organization. We needed to become more sophisticated when we bought a facility in Florida City. So now we had two different places of business. And my father worked at one of these places and I worked at the other place. And it was obviously spoken, but also unspoken, that I would oversee the physical operations here and he would oversee the physical operations there. I was overseeing the operations of the whole company, but he would just make sure that people weren't sitting on buckets all day doing nothing. And I would make sure that people aren't sitting on buckets all day doing nothing. But it definitely created, because there were days I wasn't in the office and there were days that he wasn't in the office. There were, like, when the cats play, the cats away, the mice will play. But there were likely times where if he wasn't around for a couple days or even a week, and I was stuck doing a job in Key Largo, that the manager, the leader was not around, and people would do less work, and we would have no idea. It wouldn't show up in the daily reports because we were a bigger operation and it was harder to understand. So I can't hone in enough on that concept. And to be realistic about the size and your growth speed is very important. So here's what Nucor Steel does. Managers must know the extent of economies of scale and where diseconomies of scale begin to occur. I just read that. And Nucor Steel, which is a pretty cool, innovative steel company. Steel is a commodity, but they do it well. For example, the realization that diseconomies of scale exist has led to the company's decision to build plants that employ only, this is cool, 300 individuals or fewer. The belief is that it is more efficient to build two plants, each employing 300 people, than one plant employing 600 people. Although the larger plant may theoretically make it possible to reap greater scale economies, Nucor's management believes that larger plants would suffer from the diseconomies of scale associated with large organizational units. Interesting. So I wanted to bring about this concept of diseconomies of scale a little bit more, because I know last class we just kind of talked about it as a point in which you don't want to get to, and that where if you produce more, things could possibly be not as efficient. But that kind of talks a little bit more about the bureaucracies and the overburden of the people and the facilities and the operations that hopefully bring it into a deeper perspective. There is this rule, it's called the 80-20 rule. It's also called the Pareto principle, where, and I think I've discussed it in the past, but it's interesting to understand, is that, so let's just say that in society as a whole, think about all of society, there's a good chance that 20% of the society produces 80% of the productivity. Meaning, like, there's a select few people that are really working their tails off to help the people around them, like the productivity of the community. It doesn't mean they're doing all of it, but it means they're doing a good amount of it. So within an organization, I mean, just look around, look at the 100 people in an organization. There's a good chance that 20 of those people are producing at a rate that's much higher than the other 80% of the organization. And of course, that parading principle is very scientifically proven over time, and certainly for human civilizations, amongst other concepts, is a powerful concept, which it means that there's inherently baked into large organizations and human systems, there's inefficiency. And how do we find those inefficiencies? How do we manage through those inefficiencies? How do we promote that 20%? How do we possibly lay off, some of the 80%, but how do we encourage them and incentivize them? That's the concept of management. But the Pareto principle is a powerful, powerful concept. The more we do something, the easier it will be for us to understand it. And also think about Salesforce. Neo says that he uses Salesforce all the time. When he first started using Salesforce, let's just say that he came into the organization for the first time today, and he met Neo 2.0. Like he had no idea about Salesforce, and he met a version of himself who had 10 years of experience with Salesforce. Now he's going to have to learn all of that. Where do I push this button? Where do I access that link? What the heck is this telling me? What are these names of the departments? There's a lot of buttons to click. There's a lot of processes involved in learning that. And it says that these learning effects are even more prominent when there's more steps with technology. So more significant when a technological complex task is repeated. So Salesforce being a built out platform where you really have to understand how it works, how to pull reports, all this kind of stuff, it's somewhat of a complex task. Learning effects are more prominent in situations like that, because if I can teach somebody that's new how to use Salesforce and they use Salesforce for a year, it's extremely easier for them to pop into Salesforce on day number 368 than it was on day number 12. Extremely easier. So that's the concept of learning effects, simply put in an example. Diminish the importance after a period of time, triggered by changes in the company's production system. We looked at that chart last time. So this is a fun one. The experience curve. I'm trying to think of an example to experience curve. Okay, so here's what I highlighted today for experience curve. Put simply, as a company increases the accumulated volume of its output over time, so we're doing more, we're producing more, it is able to realize both economies of scale as volume increases and learning effects. Consequently, unit cost and cost structure fall with increases in accumulated output. So this has to do with here's the curve. This combines both learning effects and economies of scale, and it says it's the experience curve. So the more we're in business, the more we're operating in this environment, the more that our organization exists, the more experience we have as an organization, the more efficient we become. And I think that's sort of intuitive in and of itself, but it's a systematic lowering of the cost structure, and consequent unit cost reductions occur over the life of a product. A product's per unit production cost decline each time its accumulated output doubles. There was a fun example. Okay, this is the example it gives. According to the experience curve concept, per unit production cost for a product typically decline by some characteristic amount each time accumulated output of the product is doubled. So let's think about this. The relationship was first observed in the aircraft industry, where it was found that each time the accumulated output of airframes doubled, unit cost declined to 80%. So think about the airframe of an aircraft. These are major metal contraptions that are needing to be produced and manufactured. It's a huge production. So as such, the fourth airframe typically costs only 80% of the second airframe cost to produce. The eighth airframe, only 80% of the fourth. The 16th, only 80% of the 18th, and so on. So the more you produce, you're cutting 80% out every time you double the output of cost. This outcome of the process is a relationship between unit manufacturing costs and accumulated output, similar to the illustration in figure 5.3. So I know that was a lot of numbers, and if you can picture that, imagine that, but that's a significant impact when it comes to efficiency, is this concept of the experience curve. So if somebody tells you, hey, you're some young punk, sorry to the young punks out there, maybe I'm not as politically correct as I should be, but you're a, tech savvy 22-year-old, just fresh out of college, and you roll up into an organization as a new hire, and you take a look at the man or woman that is sitting there that has been there for 30 years, that's bright-eyed and has tons of experience within this organization, and you start telling them how you need to change things and how technology can improve your processes and workflows, that person most likely, if they're a constructive 20 percenter of the organization, I'm saying that this person with a lot of experience is a good person and does well and has a lot of clout within the company. And just because someone's new and they have some zealous way of like doing something better, they cannot trump the experience that that person has by performing the tasks in an organization for hours and hours and hours more than a new hire has, even if they have some skills or some unique technological basis. The sheer volume of output that an employee or an organization was able to produce under its current infrastructure will always trump something new and something revolutionary. That's not necessarily always the case, but you understand what I'm trying to say. Experience matters. That's the kind of the picture I'm trying to paint for you. So I'll say it like this. It's not when we were running this company, and it was 25 years of running this company, and we started in a shanty area within the boondocks of the place called Ocean Reef. And there's really no shanty areas in Ocean Reef, but it was like the shantiest of areas. And we had this like small little corner office, and it was right by the dump, like literally right by the dump. And we were just a landscape company. And I was running around mowing grass with my dad and picking up palm fronds. I was like 15 years old. And now fast forward 22 years later, we're now operating this regional enterprise. And I would say to people that our success has very little to do with who we are today. And we have to honor the folks who came before us in order to even brag about anything we're doing today. So what I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to point to the people who had been there for years and years and years and have seen the organization grow and change and say it's because of them. It's because of them that we're able to do what we're doing today. So there has to be an honor and respect for those kinds of people who have that experience. I'm not trying to take this experience conversation and bring it to just a person or like people, but I'm trying to get you to understand and value the reality of what experience brings, whether it be from organization, from using a tool, from using a system, using a process, and how that can be leveraged to create a competitive advantage. Raphael? I hear what you're saying. So what you're trying to say is somebody that has a lot of experience could be content, or they could be too conservative and be unwilling to be flexible and change. That's not what I'm talking about here. And I want to make sure I differentiate between them. What I'm talking about is the power of sheer experience. That's it. I'm not talking about a person that's unwilling to change. I'm not talking about a person that's overly conservative and not able to be more progressive, because I do agree that that's a flaw, but I'm talking about the sheer power of experience. So if you just factor out experience alone and think about that and combine that experience with the willingness to change and with the new technology, now you have something. For Bill Gates, if it wasn't for Martin Luther King, if it wasn't for the people that have done things in the past that have allowed us to be zooming on the internet right now talking about efficiency, we wouldn't be able to do it. And I think that's the point. So, but yeah, Raphael, fair enough. And as I was articulating that, I didn't want to come off saying that people with experience are more valuable for an organization than people without experience, because I don't know if that's necessarily true, but I'm trying to just look at the sheer idea of experience and how powerful that can be if leveraged appropriately. Okay, cool. So experience matters. And so now we're going to talk about, which this is a big one, think about it, efficiency, flexible production systems, and mass customization. Ooh, this is the Pandora example. Mass customization is the use of flexible manufacturing technology to reconcile low cost and differentiation through product customization. Just think about mass customization as the Pandora example. They're able to create a custom radio station for every single one of their, let's say, 50 million subscribers. That's amazing. And so how can Toyota and how can Nike and how can, I think, M&M's, Mars chocolate is another example where you can order M&M's and you can have like a little personal logo put on each one of them. It's because of technology in a lot of ways that these systems are capable of customizing and doing it in a somewhat efficient manner for their customers. I don't know. Maybe the Tesla group can help me with this. Does Tesla do customization of their cars? It's fascinating. If I had the technological ability, I'd pull up the Tesla website and begin the ordering process and see. It probably has a series of questions that it wants to know about what kind of car you want before it can price it. But I'm assuming that their manufacturing process can likely accommodate, like, I don't want the Tesla sign here, or I want tinted windows or no tinted windows, whatever that makes. So it's basic customization. But what would be cool is if you could almost like design your own Tesla car. And I think that's kind of where this is going. It's flexible production technology, a range of technologies designed to reduce setup times for complex equipment, not just simple equipment, complex equipment. Like instead of having a Tesla car be 15 feet in length, which probably isn't that long, I want it to be 18 feet in length. By the way, instead of the doors that are shutting like this, I want them to be these butterfly doors like this. And when the butterfly doors come up, I want laser beams to be pointing out of the butterfly doors. And, I want a disco light on my car, and I want to have Justin Bieber come in the parking lot and do it, whatever. So they can do a whole bunch of different things based on your request. And obviously each one of those things is going to be a product category. I don't think we're too far away from that, ladies and gentlemen. I really don't. I mean, the amount of customization we can do with our food through Uber, it's unbelievable. Our taxi riding, our grocery shopping, I mean, I don't know, even a pet nowadays can be genetically engineered to be like more loving. I'm not saying that's ethical, but you get the idea. I really think companies are moving towards this mass customization. And that's really where these functional strategies come into play. Do we pursue mass customization, or are we still sticking to this standardization strategy? That's a major functional level decision that needs to be made. Okay. Traditional manufacturing, flexible manufacturing. Let's stare at this for a second, see if we can understand it. Probably variety related. Okay, so volume related, this is the typical economies of scale curve that you see. I just drew it here. Typical economies of scale curve. But as we're creating more and we're saying, okay, we'll customize it for you, now our variety related unit costs, like we have to change things out, or we have to do machinery retooling, this kind of stuff. Now our variety related unit costs start to increase. So but here's the deal. Customization, typically, even at this point in the game, is expensive. In order to customize something as an organization, it takes more time, energy, and effort. I mean, think about at McDonald's, you get a burger and the burger comes with pickles on it, and you go back to the person that says, hey, I ordered it without pickles. They're not like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me get you a free burger and let me get you a milkshake on top of that. And totally my fault. Here's a thank you note saying that you're an awesome customer. No, they're rolling their eyes at you like, dude, like, why are you bothering me about your pickles? Why don't you just take them off? Like, what's the big deal? And so versus you go to the Four Seasons and you're eating a burger at a fancy restaurant and it comes with pickles and you ordered it without pickles. Oh my gosh, like they're learning from that lesson. Everybody along that put pickles on the wrong burger is now getting like taught a lesson in customer responsiveness, because they really don't ever want that to happen. And that costs more money. It's just funny because it's true. It matters. At the Four Seasons burger cost $38 and the McDonald's burger costs $8. And one has variety related unit costs and the other one has volume related unit costs. Less about the pickles, more about the cost it takes to customize the food product and what the customers expect for what they're going to pay for that. And of course, not what the customer's going to pay, but the amount of money it costs to do something like that. So it's a general business term, and now you can see it in action. Standardized products, unit costs go down. Customized products, unit costs go up. Pretty straightforward. But look at flexible manufacturing. This is the whole concept of value innovation. And this is what Michael Dell did that kind of reverses what I just said and challenges it and says, wait a minute, I can customize something and I can make it cheaper. So this is the powerful concept, again, of flexible manufacturing. Flexible manufacturing, as you can see, the total unit costs continue to go down, even though variety-related costs slightly increase, but they don't increase nearly as much. Like you're able to be more flexible with your customization and the way in which you pivot and do things and change your machinery, and robotics are not programmed to just do one task, they're programmed to do 4, 5, 6, 7 tasks. Next thing you know, robots are going to be teaching this class for me. And I hopefully will still be getting paid, but I'll be sitting on the bed over there and I will be listening to the conversation. But it's a joke. But again, you never know. Not that I want that to happen, but you get the point that the more that these machines and these robots can start to do things a little bit differently, and the more people can do things differently, the easier it's going to be to customize things and the less costly it's going to be. Value innovation. All right, let's get into some more interesting conversations. Efficiency, automation, and artificial intelligence. Ooh, boy, oh boy. This is a interesting one. All right. It's Salesforce time, ladies and gentlemen. Back at it. Generalizing what AI is going to be, but think about what Natalie just said, and let's not jump to any conclusions about AI in general, but let's just think about the efficiency that creates. If you were to not have this automation or artificial intelligence, then you will have to take the data that the person has inputted into the intake form. Let's just say that there's 15 lines of data. And a person would have to go and take those 15 lines of data and populate it in a PDF and create an application, like an insurance application. Okay, date of birth. Okay, look over here. Person's name. Okay, did I spell that right? Okay, what's their email? Put their email over here and do an email. And we've all done that. But so what this does is you just push a button and boom, it's done. So yeah, I mean, what Sue said, it's sort of a virtual assistant. But the reality is we're not thinking as one particular task. Think about that. You own an insurance company that has 50 different locations. Or you work as a manager and a leader as an insurance company that owns 50 different locations, and you just saved 10,000 hours a year of time and energy and effort doing this tedious work, because now you can do it better, quicker, faster, more efficient, and AI empowered you to do it. So it's a tool that reduces the amount of inputs it takes to create outputs. That was a perfect example. In other examples, it could actually reduce the defects. In other examples, it could reduce the accuracy of information. You know what I mean? Like if you were to you run a spreadsheet through an AI and say, hey, can you just double check my figures to make sure they, my balance sheet balances? It can help with that as well. So there's more than just, efficiency in labor. I would assume it ties into the quality, it ties into the innovation, it ties into customer responsiveness. Remember in that video, it talked about how I forget the interaction with the customer. Like it will solve basic problems and basic questions for customers. So your customer has an issue and it needs an immediate response and there's not a person available. The AI could probably do it for you. I forget what they said that they did, like stocking products or something like that. So there's a lot. This screen right here, leadership and management innovation, and whether you're a believer or not a believer in leveraging the use of artificial intelligence. And there's a lot of dark side to this, and I've done the whole talks on the what do you call it, the ethical nature of artificial intelligence. And I am, as a man who does believe in a higher power and does believe in the value of human beings, there's some ethical concerns that I have about what this is going to do with people. But if you're just speaking specifically about shareholder value appropriation and efficiency and effectiveness, we can't deny the power in this. And let's also think about the allocation of resources. Remember, we talked about in the beginning of this class about how when you have a goal and your manager wants you to achieve that goal, we use Lady as an example, and we said, Lady, you're in charge of customer service. And the next thing you say, okay, what resources do I have? Organizations, big organizations, are investing millions and billions of dollars into the development and to the use, into the training of artificial intelligence. So that should tell you something. Just the fact that resources are being allocated in this direction. Have we been able to judge the growth in GDP and the growth of the economy and the growth of these organizations based specifically on their investment and return on invested capital in artificial intelligence? Are we there yet? I don't know. I don't think we're quite there yet. Because remember, again, the example I used about the fixed cost, the initial fixed cost it takes to build something like Pandora. I think the initial fixed cost it takes to build like Gemini and ChatGPT and a responsive robot that can serve you ice cream all night long because you love ice cream. And so these things are very expensive. But then the marginal cost of utilizing these things is going to be tremendously less once they're created and once they're implemented within companies. I wish I could say that other than my personal life and being able to do certain things that I feel like are a little bit easier to do research and to let's just say even prepare for class and create images and little stuff like that. I can't tell you a story where I have heard from an organization, even at Miami Dade College or any big institutional organizations that have said, "Oh my gosh, we did AI, and next thing you know, we're making 50% more money this year than we did last year." I don't know. I don't have a story there yet. And you guys have a story there and that, but I hear you. And so there's definitely that, creative art, something like that, like a highly effective storyline and understanding the difference in humans and machines. Yeah, I hear you. Good point. But that's again, this is one of the reasons why I'm trying to stay away, in a sense, from the shareholder perspective. Sorry, the stakeholder perspective, and I'm speaking specifically about shareholder value appropriation. And not that I'm trying to dumb down the conversation, but I'm trying to simplify the conversation so that we could win. So with what Susan said, if you just look at it as a tool, it's a highly sophisticated calculator that, like, true. Yet, whether or not AI and human beings, we're not talking about empathy right now. You know what I mean? But it's a good point. Yet, if something can create a calculation or do a calculation in nanoseconds instead of 2 minutes, then let's go ahead and use it. And so that's kind of the point here. To not get too complicated with it. Reduce labor costs, increase productivity is the main goal. This is a fun one. Moving along. Unless you guys want to talk about robots and artificial intelligence, because that can go down a hole. But marketing strategy and customer defection. So we're about to get into this customer responsiveness aspect, which is unbelievably powerful if you think about it. But customer responsiveness fits under this umbrella of marketing, by the way. And marketing is a big concept. It's about the positioning of a company with regard to pricing, promotion, advertising, product design, and distribution. The iPhone, the key adoption of the iPhone was the screen that was really big with the keyboard that was associated with it. Microsoft actually came out with an operating system and a phone that was a similar kind of concept, but they just didn't design well. It worked just as well, but they didn't design it as well in 2003, and it went nowhere. And Microsoft, I don't think they're in the phone operating system business anymore. But Apple was able to make it work because of design, because of marketing, because of proper advertising. You can't go to the market or do a customer survey and come up with the iPod. It doesn't work that way. You have to have unique design skills, unique ability to come up with these concepts. And this is a marketing creative endeavor. And again, back to what Andrew's point is these creative tasks still need to be left up to the people who have the ingenuity to do it. And this is where marketing strategy is such a powerful concept. Impacts efficiency and cost structure, customer defection. So we're kind of moving on from marketing strategy. Marketing is one of the most creative endeavors you can do just for a moment. Pricing is it's an unbelievably fun thing to play with. If you're selling turkeys at Publix, there's a very high chance on during Thanksgiving that you should sell the turkeys below your cost structure, meaning you should lose money on every turkey that you sell. Why should you sell your turkeys at a loss if you're Publix during Thanksgiving? Go to the store to buy the turkey, but you leave the store with a pan to cook the turkey with some of that gravy that you love and some cranberry sauce. Can't forget that. And possibly one of those new noodle things where you can like suck the turkey gravy out and baster. And yeah, so you get the idea. And that's a creative way to do your pricing so that you get people to come in and do other things. And I could give you many other examples. I mean, even the way they do the razors and blades concept, where they sell you the razor for X amount of dollars and they sell you the blades for this other amount of dollars. Another fun example would be with airlines. They try to segment the market enough so that if you're sitting on an airplane and you ask the person to the right of you, this is assuming you're sitting in the middle seat, which is tough. You ask the person to the right of you, how much did you pay for the ticket? And you ask the person to the left of you, how much did you pay for the ticket? What are the chances that everybody paid the same price? Probably pretty low. And hopefully they paid more than what you paid. But the point is that the airlines are capable of positioning their pricing because they know a little bit about you. And they understand if you're traveling business, if you're traveling leisure, they see that you bought it at the last minute versus this other minute. They know that you bought it on Expedia versus directly from their website. So they're capable of creating these loyalty programs in a way and assessing your who you are and why you're traveling and charging you accordingly to try to meet you there. This is a marketing conversation to have, and it's a very creative endeavor. So these are some ways that we can become more efficient, essentially making more margin by using marketing strategy to our advantage, and certainly building a competitive advantage because we were able to design the iPod, and I'll say iPod, not iPhone, because the iPod is what put them on the map in such a creative way. And gosh, like, we have to watch that original iPod commercial. Yeah, but that was it. He just had these figure-esque people with a cool song dancing around with a white cord, and he had the Apple logo. But that design, that the way they distributed that, the way they promoted that, the way that it was cool to have one, it all created a competitive advantage for. So customer defection. Customer defection is the percentage of a company's customers who defect every year to competitors. Defection rates are determined by customer loyalty, which in turn is a function of the ability of a company to satisfy its customers. Because acquiring a new customer often entails one-time fixed cost, there is a direct relationship between defection rates and cost. So if you, they use a credit card company as an example here. This is a good one. For example, consider the credit card business. Most credit card companies spend an average of $80 per customer for recruitment and new account setup. So they're not only saying that we have to expend a certain amount of marketing dollars to get a new customer to become a credit card user of ours. Think about when you go on airplanes, they're trying to sell you credit cards. Like they're paying people to do that. And obviously they have to print out these pamphlets. And so there's a cost to getting people enticed to use your credit card. And then in addition to that, when you call up the credit card place, you say, hey, I decided that I want to use your credit card, or maybe you fill out a form online, whatever. It costs them money to administer that. Like it costs them $20 at least to like sign you up. And you know what Natalie said, to put you on an application form and to process that costs about $20. So they equated, and it costs about $80 per customer to recruit them and new account setup. These costs accrue from the advertising required to attract new customers, the credit checks required for each customer, and the mechanics of setting up an account and issuing a card. So what's really cool is they have a number for that. These one-time fixed costs can be recouped only if the customer stays with the company for at least 2 years. So you get a credit card with them, and you spend all money with the credit card, and after a year and a half, you quit. You no longer use the credit card. They're losing money because they spent too much money getting you, and they didn't recoup any of the benefit of keeping you as a customer. So that's a problem because you defected too early. Moreover, when customers stay a second year, they tend to increase their use of the card, which raises the volume of revenue generated by each customer over time. As a result, although the credit card business loses $80 per customer in year one, it makes a profit of $44 in year three and $55 in year six. Another economic benefit of long-time customer loyalty is the free advertising that customers provide for a company. Loyal customers can dramatically increase the volume of business through referrals. So need I say more? I mean, when you pick up customers, when you sell a product, when your organization brings on a new service account, keeping that customer happy over time is much less costly to you than having to go and find new customers. So that's the concept of customer defection. And if you take that seriously and you treat your customers well and you keep them coming back for more and more and more, you build up a competitive advantage through customer responsiveness, through marketing strategy. This is the relationship between customer loyalty and profit per customer. So length of time customer stays with the company. So this would be years, I guess you can say years. So the more time the customer stays with the company, the more profitable the customer is. Pretty straightforward. This also probably assumes that the customer's pricing is where it needs to be, and they're not taking advantage of your company as well. So materials management matters. Having just-in-time inventory matters. Having systems to track your inventory and to be as efficient as possible with your inventory matters. This was a big deal in our organization. My father and I would butt heads often about it, that we would only order materials that we needed for jobs. But after a while, we were doing the same jobs over and over again. So we started stocking materials. We started stocking parts and pieces. And then before you knew it, I was wrong in this situation, because before we knew it, we had a bunch of inventory sitting around that wasn't being used because it was either the wrong part or the wrong piece, or it was lost, or someone stole it, or whatever. So keeping inventory, large amounts of inventory, is a risk. So I was given the opportunity to purchase a business about a year and a half ago, and I was going to partner with my uncle in order to purchase this business, and it was a patio furniture company. So they would just do all sorts of patio furniture, and it was only outdoor furniture. And with this outdoor furniture company, they had a large factory, not large factory, but large operational warehouse where they would store a bunch of these goods. And in storing the goods, they were able to track, and we looked at the financials of the inventory value. And the inventory value was somewhere around like $6 million worth of inventory that this company had. And the very first question I asked them about the financials is, how often do you turn over your inventory? Like, how long does it take you to sell your $6 million worth of inventory and then to have to restock it? And they said something like, 14 months. So they're hanging on to this $6 million worth of inventory, hoping that they're going to sell it for roughly around 16 months, and having to buy new inventory, obviously, to replenish it. But I looked at that as a significant risk. Like, what if I can't sell this inventory? What if I'm stuck having to, basically sell a bunch of inventory at cost or below cost just to get rid of it? And also the amount of money it costs to warehouse this inventory, to store it, and the liability associated with keeping that inventory around, that something could spoil. I mean, we could have a fire. There's all sorts of other things that could happen that ultimately led me to pass on the opportunity of this purchasing this company for a multitude of other reasons. But the inventory component was a major reason. And I just didn't understand why they needed to have and own so much inventory. So that is, I guess, a practical example of how having just-in-time inventory and having a better process to manage your supply chain, so you can alleviate some of that risk of having to store your inventory and only purchasing the inventory that you're going to sell or use within the next 30 days. That's a major competitive advantage there. And that really helps with efficiency. It really helps with quality. It really helps with a little bit of innovation, and certainly, what was the other one? Customer responsiveness. You can see how just simply having just-in-time inventory can create more efficiency, can create more competitive advantage. Why these subjects are talked about. This is a fascinating one. R&D strategy. Of course, human resources is a whole nother monster that we will have plenty of time to talk about tonight. So you're going to hear some of my ramble. Hope you're enjoying it. So I'll say it this way: the research and development. If you were RIM, I think it's called Research in Motion, that created the BlackBerry, and the BlackBerry no longer exists. And some of the ways in which they were deploying their research and development was wrong. It was in the wrong direction. It didn't help the company last. So that's just one example. I don't know how to run on that example. But what is the value of investing in research and development? If I have a website that's working today, if I'm not constantly thinking about ways to improve my website, if I'm not tracking information, and I'm not working with a developer of sorts to make sure that my website is as effective and as efficient as it could possibly be, then I got a problem. And what's my problem? I'm not going to be as efficient and as effective in my operation. So I'm going to test this out. I think you guys can still see my screen. As you can see, I just Googled these results here. And I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience where you Google stuff and you get this selection of content. But this little thing right here, this AI overview, was baked in by a developer that was constantly looking at the best ways to gather information off the web. And as you can see, this button, this is what I was looking for right here. They're trying to drive us towards this platform. And so Google is constantly redoing and investing in and trying to make their software better and to make their algorithm better and to drive people towards their AI and to get people to use it. And it sort of worked with me because they kind of forced me to click a button earlier that looked kind of cool. And so I clicked on it and I saw this. But my point is, this would have never came about if they didn't invest in some level of research and development. And that's kind of the key point. And an organization that doesn't value research and development is never going to create a concept like baking AI into search engine results. So we can go on and on with ways research and development. I'm trying to think of another example. How about when you take a picture with your iPhone, if you have the new software, and it's like a picture of a bug or something, and it'll tell you what the bug is. Have you guys done that? No? You should try it. Or you take a picture of a plant, and I think this plant finder, it tells you what kind of plant it is. So this is a cool concept, but again, you had to invest money into improving that, these incremental improvements. And there's a big difference between incremental improvements and revolutionary improvements or disruptive improvements. And research and development does both. The most fundamental thing that NASA did when we did our space travels up to the moon wasn't landing us on the moon. A lot of the science that we use in medical today, and cars, and a lot of other aspects of industry came from the the nuances of the creating these different tools and mechanics and processes in order to get up to the moon. Science grew exponentially, and we were able to do a ton of things with the innovation and the inventions that came out of NASA's original mission to the moon because of research and development. And organizations are the same way. Organizations that foster, so the U.S. Army, from what I understand, we may think this to be a bureaucratic organization, and it's big and it's a lot that's moving in all these different parts. This is a wrong concept. And if you've ever heard of this guy, General McChrystal, he wrote a book called The Team of Teams. And the U.S. Army, believe it or not, and along with all of the other branches of the military, are some of the most innovative organizations in the world. Why? Because they have to be competitive. They have to stay on the cutting edge. They're forced to do so. And so, not to speak to a nationalistic tendency, but what I'm trying to say is that General McChrystal's book, Team of Teams, unbelievable book. He talked about going into the war in Afghanistan and falling into just a disastrous pit of just not being successful, doing the big bureaucratic, large teams, tanks and artillery and dressing, these big military outfits, whatever. So they were running like one or two raids a day, and they were just running into so much bad. They weren't able to do anything effectively because the people would tell them like, hey, the U.S. people are going to raid you today, and the army's going to come in, and they would easily have these. They would be infiltrated very, very quickly until they started decreasing the size of their team, getting more innovative of their tactics, and figuring out how to adapt very quickly to how do we go about doing this so that we're catching the enemy off guard. And they would run 20, 30, 40 operations a day, and a lot of them at night. And they started seeing a lot more effect because they were able to move in these creative ways. They were able to adapt to the terrain and the atmosphere and the local culture and the climate. They just changed. And so there's other case studies I've read about the U.S. Army and how they use their weapons and how they deploy some of their technology. And it's extremely fascinating. And all of that is done in sort of a makeshift maker's lab. Like they experiment with things. I'm trying to think of this movie, Back to the Future. I picture this guy. I don't know this guy's name, but he's like the key character in Back to the Future. He's created time travel, and he's did something crazy, and he's a crazy guy. But that came from research and development. It's a terrible example, but there's all sorts of movies out there where you have this. Here's a good point that I guess I can make. Like this movie Extraction and these major movies where you have the bad guys and the good guys. The bad guys are trying to capture this scientist that came up with this like revolutionary way to use nuclear weapons that could create power for a particular regime somewhere, and that this scientist was like the key to creating this technology. And they would chase this scientist around, and the poor scientist is like being flung around like a ping pong ball to these different people. Why? Because of research and development, because of creating things from this kind of investment. So you can understand that innovation isn't just a product. Innovation can also be done through a process. So I can create an innovative product, or I can create an innovative process. So a process is a new, unique way that production processes can operate more efficiently. And so now let's talk about human resources. When we think about how we utilize the people that work in our operation, it's very important that we understand how we can create a competitive advantage through managing people. And so let me see if I can read some of my notes in the book. The section is titled Human Resource Strategy and Efficiencies. And what I highlighted here is the challenge for a company's human resource function is to devise ways to increase employee productivity. Among its choices are using strategic hiring strategies, training employees, organizing the workforce into self-managing teams, and linking pay to performance. So those are the core things that they talk about: the strategy, employee training. By the way, one of the reasons why you sit through trainings and why HR departments, are in charge of trainings and all this kind of stuff, because it says employees are a major input into the production process. So again, we're not talking about the human being's feelings. We're just talking about humans as a unit of production. I hate to say that out loud, but this is what we're talking about here, which means those who are highly skilled can perform tasks faster and more accurately and are more likely to learn the complex tasks associated with many modern production methods than are individuals with lesser skills. So training them, associated with training them, means that their skills are going to improve, that they're inherently going to build skills, which makes them more productive, which makes them more efficient for the organization. Our goal as employees would be to get them to compensate us based on our ability to be productive. And so that's where the pay performance comes in. So training upgrades employee skill levels. So again, I think about an upgrade. Think about I watched a Super Mario movie with my daughters the other day, and they get this mushroom and they go doot doot doot, and they become bigger and stronger. And that's what training does. Training upgrades the people within an organization. It's very important. Training upgrades employee skill levels, bringing the company productivity related efficiency gains and from learning and experimentation. So that's employee training. Hiring strategy matters. Self-managed teams, it's a loaded subject. The effect of introducing self-managed teams is reportedly an increase in productivity of 30% or more and a substantial increase in product quality. Further cost savings arise from eliminating supervisors and creating a flatter organizational hierarchy, which lowers the cost structure of a company. So as opposed to having a manager of a team, you just allow the teams to manage themselves, and they have a task and they need to figure out a way to make the task work. And so they develop their own roles, they develop their own responsibilities, and they develop their own expectations for one another. So that's self-managed teams. Does anybody work on a self-managed team? A company named Zappos, who has a bossless environment. I don't know if it's still that way, but they just have no bosses, and they go about their hiring in a collaborative way, and they go about their managing in a collaborative way as well. All right, so I want to get to information systems, infrastructure, and efficiency. So think about it this way. Your information systems matter. The more information you have within your systems, how you track your information, how you use your information, how you manage your information, it helps you become more efficient. It's pretty much as clear as it can be. Moving customer service and ordering online, automating customer and supplier interactions, reducing staff in physical stores. So think about Blockbuster for a second. Blockbuster ran into a lot of issues. And one of the things that put Blockbuster out of business wasn't necessarily Netflix. Netflix was a competitor, but the thing that put Blockbuster out of business, does anybody know the one innovation, the new thing that came onto the market that really put the nail in Blockbuster's coffin? Yeah, so Redbox, what Redbox was able to do, the Achilles heel of Blockbuster, this was the Achilles heel of Blockbuster. They focused on new releases. So they would have these stores, and anybody who'd want to come into the store, they wouldn't find any of the older movies because the older movies weren't really available. The Blockbuster ideal customer was people from the age of 30 and 45 that have families, that drive the SUV in the suburbs, that want to do movie night with their kids, and they go to the store and they might pick up some Chinese food on the way, some takeout, and they want to get Finding Nemo because Finding Nemo just came out, and they have to get the kids have to watch that new movie. So Blockbuster started using all of their shelf space on new releases. They were in the business of new releases. And what Redbox was able to do, they were able to have all the new releases without any of the cost because they were able to put DVDs in a very consolidated manner in a vending machine, essentially. So they just crushed Blockbuster on all of the new releases. They didn't have to have any real estate. They could put their vending machines outside the Publix, outside the Chinese store. When you get takeout, you could just pick up a Redbox there. Why do you need to go to Blockbuster? And also, I don't know what the late fees were, but there was a slew of other things, obviously streaming and other aspects of it as well. But Redbox was the nail in the coffin. And the reason why was because of this, because of creating ways to remove the distribution of products, to find better ways of facilitating vendors between customers, to remove middlemen, to reduce staff in physical stores. This creates efficiencies, infrastructure and efficiencies. Infrastructure, organizational structure, culture, style of leadership, and control systems. So I was using infrastructure wrong there, but that's a loaded one. Organizational structure, culture, leadership style, and control systems. That's management, all literally in one place. Leading, organizing. Sorry, management is about planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. So planning, organizing, leading, controlling, organizational structure, culture, style, leadership, and control systems. Those are like 3 out of the 4 right there. And so that's the infrastructure of your organization. This is a graphic that I put together when I started looking into the dimensions of quality. And I think this is an awesome graphic. And I want to give some more insight into it. Makes sense. All right, so here's the setup. Your quality, Prudence, is different than mine because your quality could mean I just want I just want a slice of pizza with cheese on it, and I don't really care about taste. I just love pizza. I love bread with cheese. And I'm an Italian from straight from Sicily, and I've watched this movie Nomas, or not sure how. And I'm an Italian born and bred, and your slice of pizza is not good enough for me. And so then, how do I create a slice of pizza that I can define and track quality? That's the point. It's like, how do you measure quality? So here are 8 dimensions. Whenever you have a construct, something like quality, scientists have to break this thing down because they have to understand what do human beings mean by quality. And you say stuff like, oh well, it's reliable. Okay, what the heck is reliable? Reliable is the likelihood that a product will perform without failure over a specific period of time. So you buy a watch and it costs 20 bucks and it breaks after a year. So what? You buy a watch and it costs $20,000 and it breaks after a year, you got a problem. You expect a watch that costs $20,000 to last a long time. I have a truck. What do you want to know about the truck? What do you want to know? Is it how fast is it? How efficient is it? And how much load can it have? Does it perform? Well, how about features? So now you get a truck, but it's got one of those things where you can put your lunch on. It's a truck, but it's got AC in the seats, not just heat in the seats, but like AC in the seats. That's cool. It's a feature. So Bluetooth capability, heated seats, or GPS in a vehicle, keeping on the truck theme. What this is a just a depiction of scientific definition of the 8 dimensions of quality. Is that if you have 100 people, let's just say 10 people, even if I say 3 people, 3 of us say, all right, take a bite of this pizza. Each person is assessing the quality of that pizza based on their past experiences, based on their expectations, based on their age level, based on their demographic, based on their taste buds in their mouth. Each person has a different assessment of quality. So as managers and leaders, what we have to do is we have to define what we believe to be of quality. So these are just some ways that we can try to bring about at our organization. How do we define quality? Well, we define quality in performance, features, reliability, conformance, durability, serviceability, aesthetics, and perceived quality. So these are just some ways. We can pick 2 of these ways and it'll be sufficient. But my point is this: quality cannot be used as some subjective term when it comes to managing and leading an organization. Oh, we need quality. It doesn't help. The book breaks it down with reliability and excellence. Those are the 2 terms. At least it takes quality down one level and it abstracts us to 2 different variables of reliability and excellence. Thank you so much. But even when you think about reliability and excellence, is that enough? So I'm getting you to think and really chew on the subject matter of quality, because I promise you, within the next 6 weeks of working in your job or working whatever, you're going to have a discussion about quality of service, quality of product, quality of customer service interaction, this kind of stuff. One of the reasons why I'm passionate about this chapter is because, again, I teach entrepreneurship and I'm big into small business, and these are ongoing subject matters in the entrepreneurial classroom. Of Let's just talk about operations. And you're running a restaurant. Well, how do you run the restaurant? Well, we run a quality operation. Like, what does that mean? Break it down. Well, let me break it down for you. We have performance expectations that we have. Nobody, has sends their steak back, and our performance expectations when we sell 100 steaks, every single steak that we sell is paid for. That's one way to have performance expectations versus a restaurant that if they sell 100 steaks, 4 of them are sent back to the kitchen. And when they send back steaks back to the kitchen, the customer doesn't pay for them. And so that would mean 4 out of the 100 are not meeting the performance standards. So that at least gives them an idea to say, hey, here's how we define performance. When people get their steaks, they eat them, they enjoy them, they don't complain about them, and we certainly don't compensate them for their steak because they're happy to pay for the steak. So now you have something to build on. Now you have something to track. Now you have something to control. Now we're talking about quality. Conformance. What's conformance? How closely a product or service aligns with pre-existing standards or specifications. Example, all the parts made to spec. Does every unit meet the same tolerance? Durability. Durability is the product's lifespan before it breaks down or needs replacement. That's a great one to define quality. Example is a power tool that lasts for 10 years under daily use. Serviceability. This is a huge one. How easy is it to repair, maintain, and get service for the product? Example, can you get parts quickly? Is the design easy to access for repairs? Aesthetics, pretty straightforward. That is the design aspect. And perceived quality looks into what I was talking about with prudence. Like, I perceive this to be a quality versus you perceive that to be a quality. So this is just getting you to think a little bit more about quality. So now improved quality means that costs decrease. As a result, productivity improves. Better quality leads to higher market share, allowing the company to raise prices. Higher prices increase profitability, allowing the company to stay in business, enables the company to create more jobs. So this is talking about total quality management. So we're not quite there with what quality means yet. So this is now talking about achieving superior reliability. Steps in quality improvement programs. Management strives to eliminate mistakes. Supervision quality is improved. Employees do not fear reporting problems or suggesting improvements. Work standards stress quality of work. Employees are trained in new skills as workplace changes. everyone is committed to achieving better quality. So what we were just talking about is like product quality and service quality. What this is talking about is quality of operations, like how a company is being ran. So here it is. Here's the form, features, performance, durability, reliability, style. Here's some of those product attributes that we just talked about. So this is what's important for people when they assess quality in a product. This is what's important for people when they assess quality in a service: ordering ease, delivery, installation, customer training, customer consulting, maintenance and repair, and then associated personal attributes. So this would probably be the perceived quality section: competence, courtesy, credibility, reliability, responsiveness, customer responsiveness, and communication. So this is a cool slide here when we're thinking about attributes associated with product offerings that would define quality. And remember, we have to delineate between the difference in a product and a service and how those are fundamentally different in the eyes of the customer. So one of the ways that they talk about quality is through reliability. The other way is through excellence. And excellence says to achieve a perception of high quality of attributes, the company should collect marketing information indicating which attributes are most important to customers, design products so that those attributes are embodied in the product, decide significant attributes to promote and how best to position them in the minds of customers, and recognize that competition is not stationary. So improving quality is excellence. So one of the things that I talk to every staff member who came into my organization at a managerial level was this concept of doing things in a standard of excellence. And I would always trumpet this in all of the different speeches I would give, all of the different front facing, employee facing things, is I would ask them to do everything they can to strive for excellence. Because I think I think we were created in the image of excellence. That's number one. And that we be in the creation of an image of excellence. I mean, the complexity of human beings. I do believe that an organization can be purposeful, and I think an organization can be very um, have people that are incentivized and mission driven if you use this word excellence not as a burden that people need to carry, but as a goal that we can always strive towards. And when we think about offering services and products in an excellent way, and we understand that businesses are really in the business of providing value to customers, creating value for customers, we have to understand how well are we doing this, and we have to get feedback from our customers. So when it talks about soliciting customer information, looking at trends, looking at what customers like, looking at what customers don't like, and adjusting our products accordingly, and creating this incremental improvements so that we can move closer towards excellence, I think that that's a step in the right direction. And I would hope that organizations know that their competition is doing that, that it's not the big that eats the small, it's the fast that eats the slow. And it's the people that are moving in a fast direction towards excellence that are going to win. And it's the people that get content and stagnant and complacent that eventually are going to be eaten in a way, because in business it's a competitive game, it's a strategic game, it's it's there's a meritocracy inherently baked into capitalism that we all need to understand in a way if we're going to compete in a capitalistic economy. And this isn't necessarily a bad thing, and striving for excellence is really is going to help us create a sustainable competitive advantage. So when we were talking about products, and when we look at this: performance, features, reliability, conformance, and when we look at this: form, features, performance, durability, reliability, style. These are some fun words to talk about when it comes to quality. Here's just one other level of quality, and I had posted this on my business's Instagram account probably 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, when I first read it, and it intrigued me. So I want to walk through it just for a second. This is: expectations are always evolving. This is the caption I put on here. We have to manage these expectations. Elevate your service game with the serve qual model. The serve qual model, developed by the brilliant minds of A. Sermon, Valerie Setham, and Leonard L. Berry in 1985, a long time ago, is a powerful tool to measure. Remember, we're measuring and enhance service quality, not just product quality, but specifically service quality and customer satisfaction at the same time. Service quality, customer satisfaction. This model breaks down service excellence into 5 key dimensions. Number one is reliability. This term reliability keeps showing up. If you ask my wife, what is the most important characteristic that your husband, what is the most important thing you want your husband to have? She wouldn't say, well, I wish he was a little bit more handsome, or I wish that he was a little bit taller, or I wish that he was a little bit smarter or nicer. No, there's a high likelihood, I actually know this for a fact, that my wife would say, I want my husband to be reliable. I want him to be someone that I can always count on. And so reliability, when I think about it, is key to building a competitive advantage, doing it in a quality way, and making products and making services that last. Delivering on promises consistently, not yesterday and tomorrow, but not today. Like today, I don't know, it was kind of flaky. But I didn't pick up my phone, didn't return my text, and I was sort of flaky. doesn't cut it. It's delivering on promises consistently. Responsiveness, being prompt and helpful in addressing customer needs. We are talking about functional level strategies. We are talking about quality of service being an aspect of creating a competitive advantage through functional level strategies. So if responsiveness isn't on our lips when we're talking about this stuff, then we're missing out. Being prompt and helpful in addressing customer needs. Assurance, building trust and confidence with your expertise. Tangibles, maintaining a professional and appealing physical environment. Empathy, understanding and caring for your customers' individual needs, something that Andrew says that robots can't do and AI won't be able to do. Empathy is core to being able to deliver a service. At Baptist Health, South Florida, they have empathy training and they have whole sessions and aspects in the medical community about how empathy makes a difference in the delivery of medical practices, of healthcare practices. And to have doctors trained in bedside manners, to have nurses understand how to listen and how to build empathy for their patients. In our service business, we can harness the serve qual model to identify areas for improvement and ensure we're exceeding customer expectations. By focusing on these 5 dimensions, we can create memorable experiences that keep our clients coming back for more. That was good stuff there. I got to tell you, it took me probably 5 years to really hone in on what the heck it means to deliver quality service. And everybody had some opinion. And when I came across that model, those two definitions of quality, man, it really helped me. So hopefully that helps some of you. One slide here, but it's a good amount in my mind of achieving superior customer responsiveness. This is the last of 4 pillars. Talked about efficiency, talked about innovation, we talked about quality, and now we're talking about superior customer responsiveness. These are the things we invest in. If you're running a company and you have a budget, and your budget is whatever, you got $60,000 to spread around to these different initiatives. Each of these different initiatives likely will entail something about innovation, creating new things and new processes and new products. It's going to have something to do with customer responsiveness. It's going to have something to do with the quality of our product or service. You have to invest in that. It doesn't just happen. You have to invest in it. And it's going to have something to do with efficiency, becoming more efficient. Those are hopefully ways in which you invest. And depending on how you invest and how successful you are in those 4 different pillars will determine your ability to execute on your business level strategy at the functional level. And if you can execute on your business level strategy at the functional level, you can serve the customers you're meant to serve, you can do it really well, and you know how to do it well intentionally, then you will build a competitive advantage in order to achieve success as a business owner, in order to appropriate value for your shareholders. And the last one that we're going to talk about is achieving superior customer responsiveness. Focusing on the customer, demonstrating leadership, shaping employee attitudes, knowing customer needs, and satisfying customer needs. The first one here says focusing on the customer. A company cannot respond to its customers' needs unless it knows what those needs are. What do our customers want? Thus, the first step in building superior customer responsiveness is to motivate the entire company to focus on the customer. This means, to this end, are demonstrating leadership. This means, to this end, are demonstrating leadership, shaping employee attitudes, and using mechanisms for making sure that customer needs are well known within the company. So the demonstrating leadership part, leadership and management innovation, we're strategically choosing to invest in customer responsiveness. And so therefore customer focus must emanate from the top of the organization and down. This guy from Domino's Pizza, his name is Monaghan, the founder of Domino's Pizza, stayed close to the customer by eating Domino's Pizza regularly, visiting as many stores as possible every week, running some deliveries himself, and insisting that top managers do the same. This is a person that's walking out the reality of leadership and choosing to invest himself in customer responsiveness and hoping that some of his staff will follow. This is one of my favorites. And I think this is what really my dissertation was on in a big way, because my dissertation was on this concept called employing people with disabilities and organizational citizenship behavior from an employer's perspective. I know it's a long title, but what I was studying was the impact of having a person with disabilities within your organization, and not studying the performance of the person. I was studying the attitudinal change towards the organization of the non-disabled people. So basically what would happen is a person would come in with a disability. There was sort of a job placement group. It was called the Demoya Foundation that partnered with us and came in and helped acclimate this person to our organization. They obviously had a skill set that can be used within our company, but then we had to train people on kind of how to deal with some of the disabilities they had. They were autistic. They had special needs, essentially. And I come from a family of 2 sisters with special needs. So I was studying the organizational citizen behavior of the non-disabled employee, saying, will this non-disabled employee be more prone to doing things that are not within their job description or less prone? Like, how would they react to working with someone like this? And it was a fascinating study. I actually published it and it came out well. So these are sort of attitudes. There was an attitude variable of what is your attitude like here in this organization based on this intervention. So this says leadership alone is not enough to attain superior customer responsiveness. All employees must see the customer as the focus of their activity and be trained to concentrate on the customer. Unbelievable. Whether their function is marketing, manufacturing, R&D, or accounting. I'm going to say that again to everybody in this class and to everybody that's not in this class that can maybe hear my voice one day. Everybody in the organization, whether their function is marketing, manufacturing, R&D, or accounting, should be focused on the customer. The objective should be to put employees in customers' shoes, a perspective that enables them to become better able to identify ways to improve the quality of a customer's experience with the company. It's the reason why, and I wrote a whole chapter in my book on this. The reason why I was in business was to solve the needs and the wants of my customers. If my customers didn't have any problems ever, they didn't need me. I wasn't employable. But when a customer had a problem, this is my opportunity to do what we do best, to serve them, to help them, to add value to their life. There's a bunch of science as of late on happiness. And there's an element of happiness that is baked into our personality, our temperament, like who we are. Sometimes we have a bent towards negative emotions. Sometimes we have a bent towards positive emotions. That's like a very small amount. But there's a large amount that has something to do with our routines and our habits that build happiness. And some of those routines and habits are acts of kindness, is doing things for other people. And one of the things that they studied was this concept of giving somebody a gift, or like giving away a resource or helping somebody in a kind of way. And doing that actually created the same level of happiness and euphoric dopamine kick as, I mean, it's kind of esoteric, but it's like making love, something as crazy as that. Like the feeling of just joy and feeling good about oneself is it's giving things away. It's helping other people, and it releases levels of dopamine in our brains and our mind. Again, it's the same level of some other activities in life that clearly are pleasure seeking, but giving away of ourselves, to whom much is given, much is expected, and to give with a healthy heart is good. So I'm going to read this one little snippet from my book, and then I'll be done. But I think this is a powerful concept. I'm talking about customer responsiveness. And this was the core of my book. I was going to title it, There's a Leaf in My Pool. And I was going to start off with this story, but I decided to go a different direction. So all this happened in one way or another under the bright South Florida sun, with the palm trees swaying and the warm sun shining. I watched our hardworking team. They faced daily challenges with a can-do attitude, keeping everything running smoothly while our clients enjoyed their holidays. Leisure activities were the order of the day. Golfers perfected their swings, tennis players enjoyed friendly matches, and boat engines filled the air as they moved through the blue waters. The roar of private jets landing on the runway near our office was a constant reminder of the extravagant wealth in this relaxed setting. Despite all the activities and luxury around them, our team stayed focused. They were dedicated to their work and committed to providing excellent service. However, a day that seemed to progress like any other was about to take an unexpected turn. There's the cliffhanger. Amid the office rhythmic buzz, phones ringing, and multitasking team members, a call came through that none of us expected. A customer, their voice trembling with frustration, had an urgent demand. She was in her 80s and seemed to have had other things frustrate her that day before a call into our organization. Amazingly, after a recent service visit, she found a lone leaf floating in her pristine pool and insisted our immediate rectification. I'm sorry to hear about the issue you are experiencing, our customer service manager empathetically responded. The customer's voice trembled with frustration as she explained her urgent demand. How could you think the pool is clean when there's still debris in my pool? She exclaimed. Our manager calmly asked for clarification. Ma'am, what debris is in your pool? The customer quickly pointed out, there's a leaf floating around right in the middle that is so easy to see and looks horrible. A single leaf in the pool, though minor, became a significant issue for the distressed customer. Our customer service manager understood the importance of addressing the concern promptly, so she sprang into action, handling the call with utmost patience and tact. She recognized that beneath the customer's frustration lay a myriad of emotions apart from the offending leaf in the pool. A guiding principle my father often insisted and instilled in us was, let us turn this negative into a positive. This principle was actually followed by a poignant reminder that our customers' issues are the very lifeblood of our existence. Without their challenges, our purpose would be rendered mute. Guided by this perspective, our pool technician who had carried out the service was contacted to discuss the leaf situation. Their initial reaction mirrored the customer's irritation. The prospect of returning to a property for an inconsequential issue, a single leaf, felt taxing. You want me to stop what I'm doing and go back because of a leaf? They exclaimed with frustration. So I wondered how our team would resolve this minor issue that had been blown out of proportion, and what this single leaf taught us about service, commitment, and customer satisfaction. As I witnessed the interaction, a wave of admiration washed over me for our remarkable team and their dedication to service. The technician's hesitation is met with a resolute response of our skilled customer service leader who embodies the mission with steadfast commitment. In a suspended moment, she asked the technician, "Why don't you just take the leaf out of the pool?" The weight of her words resonated not only with the technician, but also with those within earshot in the office. In that instance, her words capture the essence of our sacrificial commitment to serving others, reminding us of the transformation that can be ignited through small acts of service, converting a customer grievance to a series of positive experiences. This opportunity not only reinforces the foundational philosophy of our work, but also puts our trade service action to the test. Despite their initial frustrations, the pool technician returned to the customer's property. When they arrived, they greeted the customer with a warm smile and a genuine apology for the leaf incident. The customer, relieved to see the technician's willingness to address the issue, watched as the leaf was promptly removed from the pool. In return for the technician's effort, the customer handed them a bottle of water, expressing her gratitude for their exceptional service. It was a simple task, but its impact on the customer was clear. It may have seemed monotonous to the technician, just another part of the job, but it meant much more to the customer. Despite being a long-standing customer who consistently paid her bills, the technician's willingness to listen and respond and go the extra mile made all the difference. The episode with the leaf unfolds as a watershed moment, affecting our customers and team and igniting a makeover within our service career. It illuminates a cardinal truth. Service is not merely a resolution mechanism. It deeply comprehends our customers' needs, frustrations, emotions, circumstance, and aspirations. The leaf incident prompted a shift in my perspective regarding our responsibilities to serve our customers well and with intention. I witnessed and nurtured a renewed sense of purpose among our team members as they engaged in each interaction with a sincere desire to make a positive impact. For me, the leaf that found its way into the pool symbolized our everyday obstacles and challenges, urging us to respond with grace, empathy, and unwavering dedication. This is the last paragraph. Most importantly, this experience underscored the idea that even the simplest and most seemingly mundane tasks, when executed with excellence, ascend to a level of significance that is nothing short of divine and transcendent for those with a heart to serve. So that is customer responsiveness, hopefully summarized in a story. And if you can get a trumpeted group of people marching towards that kind of beat that are great because they can serve and they experience that kind of greatness through their service excellence, not only will they be intrinsically rewarded by doing the task, but the organization will improve over time and your competitors will never stand a chance. Because if you have a group of people running around saying, "Yes, ma'am, yes, sir, no problem, I'll do what you need, whatever you need, I'll take care of you. By the way, thank you for your business, thank you for your service." If you ever seen Baymax, before Baymax goes into his little thing, it's called Big Hero 6. He says, "Are you satisfied with your care?" "Yes, I'm satisfied with your care." Close the loop, finish the task, move on to the next task with a smile. This is service quality. This is customer responsiveness. And this is what, like that story I told in the beginning of the class, the people we see doing that consistently are the ones that we need to recognize, reward, and the ones that we need to promote into positions of management and leadership. And certainly, I hope you, as managers and leaders, can lead by example and deliver excellent customer service responsiveness within your organization. It's inspirational when you reflect on some of these leaders that one might consider to be heroes and think about their lives